we're on the same
When
side.
I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
And about the past and about the future.
Welcome back to Draftvice. I am Walter. We're here again, and guess what? We brought a friend today, Mr. Harry Van Ness.
I can't taste or smell anything.
Oh, good. We're worried already. Yes, everybody. It is Draftvice. We're back, and we are talking about some pre-free agency issues for some teams. Right? We're talking about the AFC East, right? The AFC East, if you will. And again, the Patriots, the Dolphins, the Bills, the Jets, of which one of these teams, Harry, is a fan of.
Unfortunately, it's the one that just went 2-14.
It's true. It's very true. It's almost half-heartedly true, but entirely true, too.
Yeah.
Yes, so we are back, and we are talking about these teams. Harry, what have you been up to lately?
Just doing a lot of work, drinking a lot of Pepsi, and just waiting for football to get back.
Yes, and if you want, you can follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. You can follow me at BROJO, Death is in the End of Life Punch, like a delicious drink you drink in the summer. And like, follow, subscribe. This podcast is a podcast on football. And you can follow Harry at
Harry Van Ness on Instagram.com and OnlyFans.
There's a .com for Instagram? I thought that's like more of an... All right, cool.
Yeah.
Instagram.com.
And OnlyFans.
And OnlyFans. I'm actually a subscriber to Harry's OnlyFans. This is how you lose a lot of money monthly. But go ahead, subscribe. He will send you feet pics.
I will. And pics of other stuff. I'll act like a dog. Sometimes I'll just do a point of view where I just listen to you talk about your day, because people need that too, not just their...
All right, so since we are excited to talk about the AFC East and to not get people too much into the dog fetish, if you will, yes, we were talking about the AFC East, the Jets, the Patriots, the Bills, and the Dolphins. And let's talk about the former. We will end with the Jets, right? Because it should end with the Jets. The Jets
gotta end on a low note.
But it's a sexy team to talk about this year. They got so much going on for them. But we will start with the former leaders of this division, the New England Patriots, because they've been in the news a bit.
Yes.
They re-signed Cam Newton, Mr. Cam Newton, the former number one overall pick, former Panthers quarterback, was the quarterback of the Patriots last year, looked kind of good until he got the COVID. And then he kind of came back, did not do well, did not look like he had any chemistry, but also that team did not look like it was good anyway. He comes back on a one-year deal. Yes, he can, I think, get up to $14 million, but most of that's incentive. About $9 million in incentives to bring back Cam Newton. $5 million of that is going to hit their real cap. $2 million signing bonus, $1.5 million base salary guaranteed, and $1.5 total in pregame roster bonuses. So basically $5 million to keep Cam Newton. If they want to cut him by the beginning of the year, it costs them $5 million. Or trade him. A bunch of these incentives are like if he goes to the Super Bowl, Pro Bowl MVP, things like that. Those are the things that'll make him more expensive. So he will probably hit their, depending on which one of these bonuses are considered likely to be achieved. That'll affect how much he hits their salary cap this year. Harry, what do you think about Cam Newton coming back to the Patriots?
I'm gonna be honest. I think it was a dumb idea. I've always talked about how Brady's a system quarterback. I still think he is, but he's a system quarterback that's better than Cam fucking Newton.
I would like to maybe take a step back from saying that Cam Newton can't somewhat have a resurgence. I like this move not because I think Cameron Newton is going to be the quarterback of the Patriots next year. I like this move because it gives them something, right? It gives them a veteran quarterback who now is in year 2 of their system, knows a lot of their players, knows their coaching staff.
Hopefully they'll have some healthy receivers also.
Yes, maybe they draft a guy. Maybe they sign somebody in free agency because they could do all the above, and it would probably help that team a little bit. Speaking about this, though, Cam Newton, like I said before, that Seahawks game earlier this year was really good. Then he got the COVID. A lot of things kind of happened. Looked like he started looking like the Cam Newton a few years ago when he was injured. I think they liked having a mobile quarterback. I think this signals something, folks. I think this signals that they're not going to go after the Mac Joneses of the world. This sounds like they're going to, if Justin Fields falls, they'll go after Justin Fields. Try to trade up with the Lions at 7 if he falls to 7 stupidly. Or Trey Lance, right? Another mobile quarterback who has a good deep ball arm, very similar to Cam Newton. Get one of those guys in there, right? Like one of these good athletic quarterbacks. If Fields is the guy they get, it's going to be unfair. It's really going to be unfair. It's going to be ridiculous when Fields is the 4th quarterback taken and it's the Patriots trading up with like the Detroit Lions for a couple of future picks.
I'm crying just thinking about it.
Right? Harry's got tears coming down his face right now,
Jets
folks.
Draft Zach Jones, and he's just going to end up being Mormon Mark Sanchez.
Zach Jones. Is that the combination of Zach Wilson and Mac Jones? It's like we had to fuse them together to get almost as good.
It's like Zach Wilson, the guy from BYU.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, listen, either one would probably be the wrong choice over Justin Fields. Although, listen, there are people PFF like Zach Wilson really well right now. Chris Sims really likes Zach Wilson to the point where I'm pretty sure his hand's underneath the... never mind. I'm just saying Chris Sims really likes Zach Wilson, everybody. There are a lot of people who like Zach Wilson. There's some rumors that Zach Wilson might be considered a better prospect than one Mr. Trevor Lawrence, who's going to the Jaguars. I am not of this opinion, folks, but I've heard people say it. Chris Sims had said it. I don't know why saying that twice makes it so much better, but who knows? PFF has said that, some of the people from PFF said it's not the most ridiculous concept in the world. He did grade very well this year. I think it's weird because you have that longevity with both Fields and Lawrence. Both have had really good years prior to this one. I know people got a little squeamish on Justin Fields due to the Northwestern game and the Indiana game. I've looked at those games, and there's some things to be worried. I don't know if worried is the right word. I think there are things that he does that are concerning, but there's also things that he does in that game that are very good. There's a little bit of too much hero ball. I think it also might be more of the offensive design concepts. Anyway, we're not here to talk entirely about quarterbacks. The reason why we are talking quarterbacks is about 2 of these teams that are probably drafting quarterbacks, though, so we do have to kind of give a little bit of insight on it. So yes, they bring back Cam Newton. I think this signals they might want a more athletic quarterback going forward. I think they liked what they saw from Cam Newton, what he can do, as opposed to having Brady, who, if you had a couple of receivers that could get some, who are good in the short areas. That was his big benefit. That was what he did really well, was utilizing Edelman and reading coverages. And he was good in that offense. I think now what they like is if they could get that from somebody, but combine that with athleticism. I think that's what they're looking for going forward. I think that's what they liked what they saw. I think the mobility is kind of intrigued them now. It doesn't mean they can't necessarily trade for another quarterback like Mariota and have a competition if, say, they don't get the guy they want in the draft. That would be an option for them. And I always kind of thought Mariota would be the one landing there still. Mm-hmm. You would have 2 athletic quarterbacks who can run and throw the ball pretty well. I think that would maybe be the next option on my list if I was looking at another guy to go after if I wasn't drafting a guy in this draft this year. Let's talk a little bit about the money situation, because they got money, folks. They got lots of money by switching to Geico. But even by not switching to Geico, they saved so much money. They have upwards of $60 million in cap space. They did just trade for Trent Brown. That was I think a big deal. They got him for, I think it was like they did a pick swap. They swapped a 5th round pick for a 7th round pick. Trent Brown, formerly a right tackle on the Las Vegas Raiders, now who's previously a tackle on the Patriots, who walked in free agency a few years ago. They netted a comp pick for him. They traded a 5th rounder to get him back. They're going to be paying him about $15 million, which is not that much. They're losing Joe Thuney in free agency. I think they might release Marcus Cannon or trade him somewhere to a team that might need a tackle, because Marcus Cannon opted out last year. They actually had quite a few opt-outs.
Yes. Devontae Hightower opted out.
Hightower, Marcus Cannon, Patrick Chung. So getting Deontay Hightower back might be a big deal. I could see them cutting Patrick Chung. I actually don't know if they can cut Patrick Chung. I know I kind of always thought I thought one of these guys was more cuttable than the other one. I have a note here on that. Deontay Hightower, they could release him and save almost $10 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like, that's more money that he'd be going into free agency and all these trades with. Stephon Gilmore, they could save $7 million by trading or cutting him. There were talks already this year about trading him. Earlier in the season, some talks about what his value might be. Maybe they could trade him for a player. They did have J.C. Jackson, who's a restricted free agent, who played really well. Like, him and Xavier Howard had a ridiculous amount of interceptions this year. I don't know if it's because they both played a lot of the same guys who kept on throwing interceptions, but J.C. Jackson is a restricted free agent. They're probably going to re-sign him, tender him as a first-rounder, and maybe even extend him. So they're getting younger on that corner room. That might mean that it's a good time to kind of see if they can get something for Gilmore, because Gilmore's getting up there in years. He did not play very well when he played on the outside last year. He played really well when he played in the slot. So if you're finding a team that needs an elite slot corner, maybe you could trade him. Maybe they keep him because $14 million for a slot corner is a lot. Considering you could trade him, yes, you will get $7 million in dead cap, but you'd be clearing $7 million and maybe be able to sign a guy like William Jackson III, Shaquem Griffin, a couple of the other corners that might be out there, Chidobe Awuzie. Again, they might be able to go after some of the major free agent guys and rebuild through free agency or trades. Again, teams are trading guys left and right now, and the Patriots, because they're one of the 4 teams that have an excess in cap space, can really attack. And I think they are going to find they are going to be very malleable and attack some maybe potential free agents to sign. They did just re-sign Justin Bethel to a 3-year, $6 million contract. A couple of other guys they could release, even clear more cap space. Like I said before, with Stephon Gilmore and Deontay Hightower. Bo Allen would clear another $2 million. Akeem Spence would clear $2 million. Julian Edelman would save $3.4 million. And then Marcus Cannon would save $7 million. And again, trading Marcus Cannon to another team, somebody who's looking for a right tackle right now, maybe the Ravens, if they manage to trade away Orlando Brown, and they're like, you know what, we don't have another right tackle, but we got rid of Orlando Brown because he wants to be a left tackle, and he says he won't play for us unless he's left tackle, and we already have a left tackle who he just extended. Maybe they go there, and they get maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick for Marcus Cannon, clear up another $7 million in cap space. Especially because they, like I said before, they traded for Trent Brown. And they also have Nwehu, who played right tackle for him this year, who played really well. They have Isaiah Wynn, who, when he's been healthy, has played really well and has played tackle for them. So they have a good situation as far as their offensive line goes. And they seem like, even without Skarnecki, they developed guys last year. They had guys that came along and played really well for them. So I think the Patriots... offensive, they're going to be losing Joe Thuney in free agency. This is why I don't know if they go necessarily the signing route. Is they're losing Thuney in free agency. They love those comp picks. If somebody's going to give Thuney a ton of money, maybe they go after guys who are getting cut, right? John Brown just got released. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Emmanuel Sanders. I don't know if Sanders really wants to go there. It sounds like Sanders might be going to the Packers, or at least there's been rumors that he might like to go there and he would take a discount to go there. So there's a couple of options on the table for the Patriots, maybe for going after guys who are getting released and some maybe cheaper free agent options. Maybe that's also the reason maybe they keep Gilmore. What else do you think about the Patriots right now?
I do like the idea of them signing John Brown, a very good receiver. He's remember he was the number 1 guy for Buffalo a couple years ago, but Buffalo, obviously they have Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs now, and that's what the Patriots are known for doing. The Patriot way is taking I'm by no means calling John Brown trash, but taking another man's trash, another man's treasure, taking guys who didn't work out other places like Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, and then turning them into stars in that Belichick offense.
I agree. I think that the only thing is John Brown said he really is eager to go to either the Colts or the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers are signing him, but the Colts have some money to throw around as well. They're one of the other two teams that has money. I think both teams should be in the market. Both the Colts and the Patriots should be in the team for a deep threat wide receiver because that's what's worked for Cam Newton in the past. Yes. Having a guy who can take the coverage, and again, Cam Newton, top end shelf. Cam Newton, when is he good? When he's got a guy taking the top off the defense and he's throwing a ball to some guy like Ted Ginn Jr. who hasn't played in the last you barely see him do anything, and all of a sudden he's playing with Cam Newton. He's catching deep balls every 3 weeks. So maybe they go for another deep threat if they don't get John Brown. Maybe they go for John Ross. Again, like you're saying, taking somebody off the trash heap and reclamating them. John Ross would be a huge reclamation project, especially if they're going after one of these other guys in the draft. Justin Fields has a great deep ball. Trey Lance has a great deep ball. If Marquise Goodwin gets released by the Eagles, which is probably a huge possibility, they traded for him last year. He had no guarantees on his contract. He opted out. He's a guy who might get released to clear up another $5 million, or they might trade with the Eagles to get him because, again, it's a $5 million contract. It really costs nothing. So, again, you'd be getting a deep threat wide receiver. Marquise Goodwin's known for just being a track star. Again, you want to get those guys who can maybe take the top off the defense, guys who they could look at in this draft. There's, we've talked about Elijah Moore quite a bit because if you don't know, Harry's the Ole Miss guy on the show.
Yeah. Wide receiver,
he's an absolute. And by the way, Elijah Moore, fucking absolute stud. If you watch any defensive back film and they play Ole Miss, you're watching somebody getting roasted by Elijah Moore, being utilized out of the slot. Again, very gadgety they've used him, but damn it, man, and then even non-gadget routes, he's great. I'm just saying, and then the things you can make him do running out doing out of the backfield and out of the slot and out wide. He's got speed. A lot of the comps I've heard to him, and I kind of agree. When I see him, I think of maybe not as strong DJ Moore, but almost a little bit faster. Can take the contact. Now, DJ Moore was definitely more of an X receiver. I don't know if he will line up on the outside as a split end, but he could definitely line up in the slot. He could probably get some decent releases as a split end, as a flanker. So again, if he's able to get off the line of scrimmage, he's going to be wrecking some offenses almost immediately. I think he's going to be a fun one to watch. That's a guy they should be looking to get speed. The Jalen Dardens in this draft, the Tutu Atwells, guys who, again, you get the ball in their hands and go, because again, you're gonna if they're going after either one of these quarterbacks, or they're sticking with Cam Newton, or they're trading for Mariota, whatever they're doing, they gotta find speed. There's been no speed. There's been nobody getting separation on this team. Yeah. Their receiving core was jank. It was Jacoby Myers and N'Keal Harry, nobody even thought N'Keal Harry should have went in the first round when he got drafted. Now, granted, you know what? The guy who came out after him from the same school, Brandon Ayuk, he went in the first round. I think some people thought maybe first round for him. N'Keal Harry did get some maybes for first round, but again, I just what he did when he was at ASU was not what he wasn't a separator guy. Maybe you're using him like a big slot. Yeah.
And keep in mind, A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf went in the second round in the very same draft.
Yes. Oh, my God. Let's not rehash how everybody just slept on DK Metcalf.
Listen, Pats fans, just be happy you're not the Eagles.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
at least you have the excuse when you're the Patriots of, listen, we've got a ton of Super Bowls and we lost Tom Brady. Let us have a year or two to get to know ourselves without the Tom Brady-ness. I think some people are just mad because Tom Brady's somewhere else, and it was he's gone. Now it looks like you guys disrespected him. Listen, I think they'll bounce back eventually. You do have to figure out the quarterback position. I thought, even before the Cam Newton signing, I thought they would still be in the trade market or maybe go after Ryan Fitzpatrick. The idea of re-signing Cam Newton means I think they're going to take this with a slow burn. Again, I think they're going to value, I think they're going to go after guys who are getting cut. And we're going to see a lot of guys like that. We saw, I talked about the Lions the other day. They put a value on signing guys who have gotten released, and I think because they're going to try and value the comp pick formula going into this year. They're going to be doing a lot of what the Browns and the Dolphins did a couple years ago. reportedly interested in Jimmy G. Yeah, they've been reportedly interested in Jimmy G up until this point. Julian Edelman might not even come back. So again, like I mentioned before, Edelman will save a few million if Edelman doesn't come back. Outside of that, looking into this free agent class, they got to get somebody with some level of speed, some separation ability. I don't think they're going to go for a Kenny Golladay.
Yeah.
I could see them, especially if Edelman's not coming back. If Jamison Crowder gets cut,
Yeah.
I could see them going after him.
Please no.
You're just like,
no.
please, we don't need.
He's one of the few bright spots on our offense.
Well, we'll talk a little bit later about Jamison Crowder. Any last thoughts on the Patriots?
No, I think you said it all. Like when you were mentioning free agent targets, I think obviously this won't happen since he just got franchised. I think Allen Robinson would have been good. But obviously he's good.
Well, I think Robinson wants to go to a Super Bowl. I mentioned this. I did the recording the other day. I mentioned the last episode I did. I talked about the franchise tags, and I said I don't know if Allen Robinson signs his, and I wouldn't be shocked if Chicago takes it back because it's $18 million and they don't have a lot of cap space, and that you have to create roster space. You have to make room for that money if you franchise tag somebody. And then if he doesn't sign it, you can't trade him.
Yeah.
So he can make it a headache and a half for them to keep him around. I could see Allen Robinson making it a bigger deal. I mentioned before about John Ross. Will Fuller would be an interesting one, especially because you have Cam Newton. I don't see them going after Corey Davis because it feels like a lot of the same. He's become very like him and Devontae Parker were guys who kept on showing really cool aspects of what they could do, but never felt like they put together that alpha receiver ability. Adam Humphries was a guy who they were interested in a few years ago. Maybe they go after him. He just got released by the Titans. That's a guy, like I said before, they might go after guys who are getting released more than, say, the guys who are still on rosters. Outside of that, though, like defensively, I could see them attacking. I don't know, because they've never been a team that like was aggressive at edge rusher, right? They've never really been the team that like I don't see them going after Shaq Barrett. If they did it, I wouldn't like it would be kind of cool. But I just don't see them being the team to go after the highest paid free agent. They're always the team that like they're losing Dietrich Wise and a couple of other guys, but nobody like else really big named outside of Thuney. So I could see them maybe trying to maybe trade for Malcolm Brown, who used to be on their team. I think they drafted him actually. He went to the Saints, and now the Saints are looking to try to trade him away to kind of clear some cap space. That would be a guy maybe they look at. Outside of that. Again, there's a lot of safeties available. They have a lot of safeties. They drafted safeties. They still have the McCourty twins. Well, Jason McCourty's a free agent. Maybe they re-sign him because he's been good for them.
Yeah.
Jason McCourty's for somebody who's in his 30s playing corner, he's been shockingly good. They still that's the only team when they have 30-year-old corners, they still work. Everybody else, they hit 30-something and they all just go away. That's it. Outside of some reclamation projects, though, I see them being very cautious in free agency, except for wide receiver. I think receivers got to be the one they got to be, especially because they haven't drafted receiver well.
Not at all.
Not since Edelman.
Yeah.
Like, the last major receiver that you drafted well was Edelman. I don't know. Maybe Juju Smith-Schuster would be an interesting one, especially if they're going for somebody who has a lot of good short area game. If they are going for the Mac Jones kind of draft, I don't know if that's necessarily what they're going to do is go after Mac Jones in this draft. I know some people have rumored it. But if you're looking to bring back the short area game, Juju Smith-Schuster would be a fun one. I think the number one thing is get weapons. Get weapons for this team. Get a quarterback. Which way you do it, whoever you end up drafting, that's got to be the plan here. You can't keep screwing up your drafts anymore. You can't be relying on like you're patting yourself on the back kind of deal. Again, maybe they go after Justin Coleman. He's been a solid slot corner. He got released from the Lions as well. Outside of that, it's going to be a couple of defensive players, and receiver should be the number one target. Let's go to your team. So we would hang off on them, but feels like a good time to get into. This is the other storyline of this offseason, right?
Right.
The Jets. Let's go into how you feel about Robert Saleh.
Love the hire. Absolutely love it. He He led the 49ers to a top defense when most of their best players were out. They lost to Forrest Buckner. Nick Bosa's been hurt most of the year. So Richard Sherman's been hurt also. So I really do like this. It sounds like an interesting fact is that Deshaun Watson actually wanted Robert Saleh to become the new head coach of the Texans, which I'm just saying. I'm not saying anything else.
Yeah, there's been rumors of that, and Harry's going to be on the show where we talk about the AFC South. We'll talk about some of the the Texans and what they might do and what they have done. But we do have to kind of talk about that option about them potentially trading for Deshaun Watson. I just don't see it being likely
because it's too good to be true.
And I just don't see the Texans getting value for Watson. I don't see the Texans being smart about it. I see the Texans sitting on their thumbs.
To be fair, look what they got for DeAndre Hopkins. So it's not like they are the Texans.
That's my point, is if they were smart about it and they just truly believed he was not going to be there anymore, they would call up the Jets, call up Miami, the teams that have 2 and 3, and try to get a quarterback in this draft. Try to get as much for Deshaun Watson as you can. Multiple first-round picks in the next 2 years, maybe even 3 years if you could pull it off. And that's why the Panthers might be a team that they might be interested in trading him to, because if you might, the only thing that I could see, and the reason why maybe they would go with the Panthers outside of maybe the Jets or the Dolphins, both teams we will be talking about today, is I believe that they might want to get a couple of picks into the future. Right, and I think Miami and the Jets, yes, you can get a lot of value right now from Miami and the Jets, and they wouldn't cripple their teams. But I could also see them being like, you know what, we're not getting anything out of it going into the future. And if you're a team that's rebuilding, you want to have as much future capital as you can get. So that's why I think the Texans might go maybe with the Panthers. That's the only team that I see as being a dark horse that overtake the Dolphins and the Jets as favorites, though. Let's pretend that the Texans are going to keep being dumb, because they are. Mm-hmm. So let's pretend Deshaun Watson's not on the table, which is not hard to pretend.
Yeah.
They got a ton of cap space. By my records, it's almost $70 million in cap space. I think that's actually including the tag with Marcus May, by the way. They just tagged Marcus May, $10 million. And the reason why they were able to maintain that and not really eat into their cap, they released Henry Anderson, who was a guy who they traded for a couple of years ago, gave him an extension, really hasn't panned out since that 1 year that he came in on the trade. This is a team that's probably got to be looking at free agency like we got to rebuild this team right now. Right? Like, they might not be – I don't think they're going to be – like, I hear a lot of rumors that they might go for some big-name tickets. And the only big-ticket name I can see them going after is a guy who we just talked about in the last team was Joe Thuney. They might be players on him because they were interested in him last year as a big-ticket player. The only reason that I don't think that is Joe Douglas has made it sound like he is very much into building through the draft. He might want to save some of this money going forward while still taking advantage of some of the free agent. This economy is going to be great. It's going to be a buyer's market, and I do think the Jets are going to be buyers in it. I think the Jets are going to have to attack it strategically. Get guys who can come in to help bolster Saleh's defense, who know it already.
Yeah.
Like you said before.
Richard
Sherman. I was thinking Jaquiski Tart, safety from the 49ers. Akilla Witherspoon's also a free agent. They actually have – the 49ers have like 4 defensive backs who are free agents, one of whom, Emmanuel Moseley, just re-signed with them on a 2-year deal. The fact that he's the only one, though, so far mentioned as far as a guy who's been re-signed by them makes me think that the other 3 guys are leaving. All of Akilla Witherspoon, Verrett is also a free agent who's been amazing at man coverage and gave Saleh the ability to do a lot of things that they weren't really able to do, and probably allowed them to stay a top end defense without a lot of their
injuries.
Yeah, without missing a lot of their key end players. Now the problem with Jason Verrett, injury prone. Yeah. He's been injured so much of his time, almost his entire time with the Chargers. I got to question what happens with that Chargers medical staff, because it feels like every player gets injured on the Chargers. Verrett goes to the 49ers, ends up saving a little bit of his career. I got to think, but then again, he kind of sparked his career with the Chargers too. So it's a little bit of give and take. But But if Verrett goes from the 49ers to the Jets, that's a key piece. Like, that's a versatile piece to have. Salah's defense, right? Very much built around the cover 3, but also cover 4. He's very much on the I want to be able to rush 4. When you're doing that, you need to look at guys who are going to be available in free agency to build up your defensive line. It's safeties and defensive line and guys who are going to be able to make the calls. That's why I think Jaquiski Tartt, big guy for them to get.
Yeah. Safety,
knows your system, is going to come in there. And we haven't even talked about the offense, right?
Right.
They signed Michael LaFleur, right? Who was QB coach, kind of, or a passing game coordinator in San Fran. Was one of Shanahan's top lieutenants. His brother is the head coach in Green Bay.
Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, and when he tried to poach him from the 49ers, Shanahan said, No, you're not doing that. He's going to stay here. Why? Because I think he had a plan. I think Shanahan, and this is why I love the Salah hire. Yeah. Salah and Shanahan, I think, are going to be tied at the hip. I think Shanahan wants Salah to succeed, and he wants to succeed more than anybody else outside of himself. This is why them not being in the same conference is amazing, different divisions, because you saw what Shanahan let him do. A guy who, now granted, because LaFleur was not a play caller already, the fact that they just changed the rules that if you were giving somebody play calling duties, you were allowed to poach them off the team as an assistant. That was not always the rule. So they would have been able to poach LaFleur. He allowed him to poach the offensive line coach. That's pretty impressive. That's a shocking thing because that's typically not the. I thought they were going to let him take the assistant offensive line coach. He's like, no, man, Salah, you take my dude. You get my O-line coach. That's pretty sick. And his run game coordinator is now going to be his true offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniels. So we're not even talking about the 49ers, and I'm already this is why I love this hire so much. It sounds like two coaches who are going to be on opposite sides of the universe, but who are, yo, bro, I got your back.
Got you.
I got you. You need, like, so when people are worried about Mike LaFleur eventually getting poached down the line, which he will.
Yeah.
But listen, you hope he is, because you know what? That means your team's doing good.
Yeah.
So when he gets poached down the line, and he probably will, you have a pipeline to steal another guy who's being developed, who Shanahan believes should be your next guy. I think that relationship is going to go well for Salah and Shanahan in the future. And it possibly could go both ways. When, say the D coordinator in San Fran doesn't work out in 2 years, maybe Salah has a guy that he's been developing, and he's saying, listen, man, you know what? Or say Joe Woods doesn't work out in Cleveland. I hope he does. I hope he does. But maybe he says, yo, man, take a look at Joe Woods. He kind of helped me develop my scheme and my system, which is very true. When Joe Woods went to San Fran, he was the guy that helped develop Salah's defensive system. Like, you remember a couple of years ago, Salah's cover 3 defense was letting things loose all the time. They get a bunch of talent on the defensive line, but they also started running a lot more cover 2, a lot more cover 4. It's still a team that does not blitz a lot. They very much value, listen, we're going to play zone, we're going to play off, we'll play man. Like I said before, Verrett allowed them to adapt. He's now had time where he's developed a team where it'll adapt very well. I am very much a fan of this hire. I think they are going to attack the defensive line, and they're going to go after pass rushers in free agency, because I think that's a big part. Yeah. There's a bunch of pass rushers, both in free agency and in this draft class. Not a top one, though. This draft class is weird at edge rusher. You will hear it all the time. It's about 10 to 15 deep as far as guys who are intriguing, guys who you might like. It's going to be a big debate as to who should be, edge rusher 5, right? Starting at the top 3 guys in this edge rushing draft class, you can make an argument about whether you think Gregory Rousseau should be the top end guy, the guy out of Miami who opted out this year, his teammate, or a guy who should have been his teammate but really wasn't his teammate because they didn't play the same year, Jalen Phillips, right? People love him. I love him, but he's got concussion issues. He's got a couple of medical red flags, so people are a little bit worried. He had to kind of basically retire from playing at UCLA, came down to Miami, played this year, played amazing. If he did not have the medical red flags, would be the number one pass rusher in this class potentially. Then you also have Azeez Ojulari, very much a Yannick Ngakoue form kind of player, form of pass rusher, who a few years ago probably wouldn't went in the third round, but he's probably going to go in the first round this year because we've seen the development of guys like Brian Burns, Yannick Ngakoue. Josh Allen's much bigger and more athletic, and so was Brian Burns. Those guys were very athletic, but Yannick Ngakoue has turned into a very good pass rusher. We've seen other guys like that develop, even Shaq Barrett. So I could see them maybe valuing Azeez Ojulari kind of in the similar way the Falcons valued Vic Beasley and Tack McKinley a few years ago. They might go cheap. They might go just for Deion Jordan or a Ziggy Ansah. But I do think they at least try to throw a little bit of money at defensive line. Dalvin Tomlinson from the Giants to help bolster up the middle. Yeah. Although, granted, to be fair, it's not like the Jets need any help building up the middle. The defensive line, the D tackles on the Jets, have historically been good, and they've stayed pretty well. Fudukasi, Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams is going to be the star of the show here, and we saw it when Saleh was with the 49ers. Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner really started to show up, especially when Nick Bosa came along.
Yeah.
So I think they will attack edge rusher. It might be Trey Hendrickson from the New Orleans Saints, Carl Lawson of the Cincinnati Bengals,
Shaq Barrett.
That would be the big money signing. That would cost a lot of money. I do think they could do it. I think Joe Douglas is going to be smart with his money. Maybe they'll go for Romeo Okwara, who, again, I think they would probably rather attack edge rusher and go for multiple cheaper free agents. And this is just because of what I saw last year with Joe Douglas and what I don't think he's going to go spend entirely on star talent. They might go star talent. I think they go star talent a different direction. I don't know if it's on defense. I think it's a lot of good guys to really build up the defense and draft guys who could fit in the scheme. I think that's the plan for defense. Offense, I think they go star talent.
Yeah.
Some level of star talent. Guy who I've been thinking about, right? I think about him a lot. Very dirty thoughts about this guy. But, dude, because every team I think about this guy. Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
Speed guy. Kind of running back-esque sometimes, but he's again, legit 4.3 speed. Deep threat, but also could be utilized near the line of scrimmage. You could utilize him kind of as in jet sweep. You could utilize him going down the field. What he would bring to a Shanahan-style offense that Mike LaFleur would be running would be beautiful. I really think it would fit very much what the New York 49ers would be running.
Yeah.
What are some of your thoughts? Who are guys who you thought maybe you want them to go after in free agency?
I mentioned before Allen Robinson, but obviously he got franchise tagged. Who else? John Brown, who just got released, interesting option.
Yes.
He's
Kenny Galladay. Deep threat guy, but also contested catch kind of guy. Play the split end position, which is what they probably need, right? Because Denzel Mims could play split end, and I actually think that's what they were hoping for him to eventually develop into. I don't know if they keep Jamison Crowder. There's been rumblings that they might keep him, they might not keep him. Maybe they keep him this year, but they can clear $10 million in cap space if they get rid of him. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or, again, trade him to a team that maybe doesn't feel great about this wide receiver market and is looking for a solid slot corner. A couple of other guys they could release. Alex Lewis has not played well for them really the last 2 years. That would clear up $5 million. Greg Van Roten would be another $3.4 million. That was a guy who was playing for Carolina. He didn't really pan out. Last year they went after a lot of guys in free agency, but a lot of like I was saying before, it was a lot of maybe this guy will work and maybe not. And then they did similar things in the draft, and two guys kind of worked out. I think Connor McGovern was fine.
Yeah.
I think they'll keep him. I think they probably get rid of Alex Lewis. Van Roten, I don't know. I think the only reason why they would keep one of those – the only reason why I think they would keep one of those guys is, listen, at least keep one, right? You at least feel a little bit better if you kept one of your guards. Ryan Griffin would give him a little bit more money, but not a lot. I'm very intrigued by the hire. I think the options they have going into free agency, like I said, they have a lot of money already. Marcus May, I mean, last year he turned into a real stud.
Yeah.
And the reason why
coverage, amazing.
And as a franchise tag player, like, again, safeties are cheap on the franchise tag already. And then this year, with this way this cap went, $10 million for Marcus May for 1 year is a steal. On the free agent market, he's probably making $3 to $4 more million a year on that. So I think that was a guy who I think was a smart move that they tagged. He might not be happy about it. They are losing Brashad Perriman. They don't sound like they're very eager to bring him back. Didn't really fit what Sam Darnold did well, to be honest. I honestly have a couple of ideas where he might go in free agency. A team that might be, I think maybe the Browns. He had a good time when he was on the Browns. It was kind of the start of the resurgence of his career before he went to the Buccaneers as well. And then he had a nice little trek of games towards the end of the year that year. Any further thoughts on them?
Yes, one more. It's about quarterback. If we're not getting Deshaun Watson, I think we should keep Sam Darnold.
This is what we had to talk about.
Yeah, of course.
Quarterback situation.
And yes, I know if you've listened to any episode of Draftvice before, I know I've been hard about Sam Darnold. I haven't been the biggest fan, but you know what? People keep mentioning he's guy's younger than Joe Burrow. Hopefully we're going to bring some weapons in for him. Our offensive line is improving. Like Mekhi Becton couldn't have been better his first year. And also you have to remember, the guy's had Adam Gase as his head coach for 2/3 of his career. Now he's got a real coach for him.
Yeah, so this is definitely so I feel like the way the Jets fans go, about 2/3 to 3/4 are okay jettisoning in Sam Darnold. And I think it was less than that early on. Mm-hmm. I think it was about 50-50 or even more than half wanted to keep Sam Darnold. But when things just got totally bad and they thought they were getting Trevor Lawrence, I think a lot of Jets fans were like, well, it's Trevor Lawrence. You can't give up on Trevor. You have to take Trevor Lawrence. Then when they found out they weren't getting Trevor Lawrence and they weren't really familiar with the other quarterbacks in this draft class, the Justin Fields, the Trey Lance, Zach Wilson.
I'm a fan of Justin Fields, but I think we'd be better off trading down a couple picks and then maybe drafting either Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith or getting Sam a legit stud number one guy.
So there's two arguments to be made here, right? Do you think one of the quarterbacks in this draft class is as good or better than Sam Darnold?
I think yes, Lawrence, but we're not going to get him, and I think Justin Fields will probably be, but again, we also don't know. Sam's still young, and I think that pick would be better served helping him with getting him some weapons.
So here's the one issue with that, though, right? Mm-hmm. If you were wrong on Sam Darnold, right, and you traded down, you were never going to be sure you're going to have an opportunity to take. It all depends on it all comes down to your evaluation of these quarterbacks. It sounds like overall there's at least one quarterback you would not mind taking it to, say you didn't have Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And
course.
You think it's Justin Fields.
Yes.
All right. So because I'm actually in the same boat as you. I actually like Justin Fields a lot. I think some of the concerns about him, while solid concerns, are a little overblown. But say you think there's a guy who you are relatively sure can be at least as good, if not better than Sam Darnold right now. Sam Darnold's in the last year of his deal, right?
Yeah.
You also have to make a decision by this May if you are picking up his fifth-year option, which is, I believe, $18 million for his fifth-year option. And he's, I think, $5 million this year? Mm-hmm. So basically you split that out. It's about $10 million, $12 million a year. But if you keep Sam Darnold, and then you activate that fifth-year option, you are making a commitment for the next 2 years you are keeping Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money, especially next year on your cap, to be committed to Sam Darnold and not be taking a quarterback. And if he doesn't pan out, you are financially tied to him. You missed out on a quarterback this year. You are now further down the line. And then next year, nobody's trading for him on an $18 million contract. Right?
Right.
You can't cut them because now at this point, all those tags are fully guaranteed. Not tags. The fifth-year options are fully guaranteed now. So you can't cut them. Very few teams are going to trade for him at that point. So you are now at the point where you have a quarterback on your roster, if he does not work out this year, that you were tied to, and you either have to give him an extension or keep waiting it out, and then maybe he pops, but then you have a few other questions, worries, concerns as far as, okay, is this the real thing? Do we give him an extension? And whereas if you say drafted the quarterback of the top, outside of Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback that you thought is the best, if it's Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, if you take one of those guys, that buys you time, right?
Yeah.
The value of the rookie QB contract is, especially now, gold.
Yeah.
Right? If you're talking about paying a guy like less than $10 million a year or $10 million a year to be your quarterback, and you were paying that guy for the next 4 years $10 million a year, how much did Dak Prescott just make?
A fuck ton.
1 year, $40 million he makes. That's per average. The annual average of Dak Prescott's deal is $40 million. You were getting a quarterback at number 2 for the same price as for the next 4 years for the same price as 1 year of Dak Prescott. That's insane. And if you think that guy can be your quarterback, that is a cheat code to getting you to the Super Bowl, because you can now spend that money somewhere else. I am not for this for every team, but for the Jets, I totally understand the argument of going ahead and taking a quarterback in this draft and trading away Sam Darnold, or even keeping Sam Darnold. The only problem with keeping Sam Darnold is then you're probably not activating his 5th-year option, whereas another team probably would. You were, say, trading him to the Washington football team, you'd be getting a second-round pick, you'd be getting value for him, and you'd be getting a quarterback, and you could spend money elsewhere, and you could spend that pick on another player, and you'd be getting real value for him. I think that, to me, I was very resistant too. I am captain trade down. You would get a haul for the number 2 overall pick. And believe me, if I thought I could get a haul for the number 2 overall pick, for instance, the 49ers, say they wanted Zach Wilson because they felt like he fit their scheme so perfectly, they could have him sit behind Jimmy Garoppolo. You're going to get a couple of first-round picks for that number 2 overall pick and maybe a couple of second-rounders, and you'd really be able to deck out your roster for the next few years. But you still wouldn't be set at quarterback.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be set at quarterback now, but at least you have a guy on a rookie deal, and you could build around the guy. Whichever one you think is the guy. I can't help but think that the value there is so good that you're almost losing by not trading away Sam, by not taking quarterback, by not getting that extra 4 years.
Yeah.
Because you're paying, again, probably the same amount for Sam Darnold, and to be drafting him, to keep Sam Darnold and be trading away that number 1 overall pick. I'm not saying it would be a bad move. It's a risky move.
Yeah.
And I don't know to what extent which one I would go. It would really come down to your evaluation of the quarterbacks in this draft class. To me, I would take Justin Fields at 2. I would trade Sam Darnold. I would try to build an offense that works for Justin Fields. If you think Zach Wilson's the better quarterback, which I totally buy the argument, I think he's good. My issues with Zach Wilson, part of it's build, and he invites contact. I don't know if he's going to be healthy enough to last through all that, especially because inviting contact is not a good thing when you were a quarterback who's had some injury concerns. We spent a lot of time on these 2 teams alone, but the next 2 teams I think are going to be quicker anyway.
Yeah.
So these were the 2 big ones. So let's any final thoughts on this?
No, I think we've said everything that needed to be said, so let's go to Buffalo. Want to do Buffalo or Miami first?
See what's next on the list. It is Buffalo.
Buffalo, okay.
Buffalo, they actually have already done a whole bunch of deals. This is why I said the next 2 teams are going to be relatively quick because they've been doing stuff. They've been working to make sure they get under the cap, be able to sign who they want to sign. They had a couple of guys who were supposed to be free agents. Darrell Williams, the right tackle, who they signed to a 1-year deal last year. He popped up and played really well for them. They extended him. They gave him a 3-year deal. I think it might be below his market. I think if he hit the free agent market, he probably would have made a few million more. But I don't think it was that much of a discount, considering we are dealing with a COVID cap economy. So maybe his contract would have been in the $9 to $10 million range. Brian Bulaga's was $10 million a year, but Brian Bulaga's a couple years older. So I think that he probably could have gotten somewhere in the vein of what Brian Bulaga got. I think more. I think he probably would have made more than Bulaga. I think he would have been close to Conklin, but Conklin had a few more years of consistency, plus he was younger when he hit free agency. So 3 years, $28.2 million. Averaging about $9 point something million a year. Again, we're not doing too much math on this podcast. Let's be real here. So just under $10 million a year. Another guy who they extended was Matt Milano, 4-year, $44 million contract, $11 million a year. This is a guy who I don't think they were sure they were going to get back on the roster. Strong side linebacker, really good in coverage, not great as much as a run defender, But listen, if you have a linebacker who's good in coverage, that's very good.
Yeah.
So they extended Milano. They cut John Brown. They cut Quentin Jefferson. Quentin Jefferson was about $6.5 million that saved them. John Brown was another $7.9 million. That definitely probably helped them in keeping these guys on their roster. They also extended Micah Hyde on a 2-year deal.
One half of the best safety duo in the league.
Yes, honestly, since McDermott went in there, the guys that the first 2 guys they signed were Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. And that has been the heart and soul of their defense since the moment he walked in the room. And they have been a key part of that defense being good. Them and Trey White. Those 3 players make their defense so good and versatile and make them one of the best coverage teams in the NFL. It shows you the value of safety that they were able to pull that off and why they extended Micah Hyde, why they like Jordan Poyer. They will probably eventually draft another safety to go ahead, and they've run a lot more 3 safety sets over the years, so I could see them even looking at one in this draft. They got Mitch Morse to take a pay cut. They actually got quite a few guys to take a pay cut to help bring back a couple of these players to help make sure that this team going forward. Mario Addison took a little bit of a pay cut. Mitch Morse, and I think it might have been Vernon Butler as well. Also took a little bit of a pay cut to come back. Between those guys taking the pay cut, it shows that this team wants to win. It shows that there's something in Buffalo right now.
Yeah,
that they want to be there. It's not just Josh Allen, but it's definitely probably seeing the success with him.
And I just want to point out the fact that we did it. We cyberbullied Josh Allen into becoming good.
Yeah, he got better this year. He got really good this year.
No, he is.
His first 2 years were miserable, though. That's the thing. This is why I get annoyed at people when we're so ready to cut bait on a quarterback. Not that I haven't slandered Josh Allen in the past. I clearly have.
100%.
I've been one of the many people to call it his accuracy issues, but again, his athleticism has definitely shown in the NFL. And now that he's kind of worked on the accuracy, and they've gotten him weapons that really work for him, specifically Stephon Diggs.
Yeah,
that was a gold maneuver by them by getting him to Stephon Diggs, a guy who's played really well in the NFL already up to this point, wanted out of Minnesota. And I actually listened to the Brandon Beane interview where he talked about this, the maneuvers to get Stephon Diggs. The guys who they were interested in, the guys who they missed out on. This was a thing in the running for almost 6 months for them to get Stephon Diggs, to trade a first-round pick to get him. And that was such an addition to their offense. And for a guy that didn't have that much chemistry, didn't have any time really with Diggs in the offseason, and they ended up developing really well as a combo. Losing John Brown, they got to find... Now, I think they already have Gabriel Davis. I think he'll be fine. Cole Beasley's been solid for him. I still think they attack wide receiver in this draft just because it's a good draft for wide receiver.
Yes, it is.
There's a lot, especially if you're looking for speed guys, it's a good draft for speed guys in the later rounds. A guy who I haven't mentioned already, Dwayne Eskridge, blew up the Senior Bowl. A little bit older of a prospect, about 24, 25 already, so he's probably not making it to the end. You're not really probably extending him beyond this deal. But again, a guy who could probably get late day 2, early day 3. Maybe his Senior Bowl performance pushed him up a little too high for that, but still a guy who they might be interested in grabbing. This team does have a couple of issues, right, from when you look at last year. Pressure, they really had a hard time getting pressure on the quarterback. The defense actually took a step back last year, partially because they couldn't really, Jerry Hughes is getting older. They really didn't have somebody else to help pressure the quarterback. I think that's why they were interested in going after J.J. Watt, and they were part of at least one of the teams that inquired about J.J. Watt. I don't know how deep into the J.J. Watt conversations they were, but they were apparently one of the ones that was interested. And, of course, they're going to call and make phone calls on everybody. Edge rusher is definitely a thing that they got to address or D-tackle again. But they also, remember, they drafted Brandon Oliver not too long ago. So I think they might look at edge rusher in this draft class. Like I said before, edge rusher is going to be a big thing for a lot of the teams in this draft, especially for the ones drafting at the end of the first round, because it's such a weirdly, like I said, deep class that the teams at the end of the first and early second are going to have an opportunity to really get guys that might develop into really good players. Guard. They could not run the ball for anything.
No.
Like the Baltimore Ravens game, which they beat the Ravens, they did really well, but they went I think a whole quarter and a half without ever running the ball. And I think for the first half of the game, I think they ran it twice, and one of those was a Josh Allen scramble. They need to get better at running the ball. And that means I think they have to attack guard. Their guard situation's been not great. Jonathan Feliciano, okay, not a guy I really want being my starting guard. I know they released Quentin Spain mid-year this year. He went and joined up with the Bengals. Didn't play well with the Bengals either. I think they could look at guys like Creed Humphrey in this draft, although he's mainly been a center, but could probably play guard for them. Elijah Vera Tucker of USC. Landon Dickerson is center. Alabama has played all 5 spots, though, on the offensive line. He's coming off of torn ACL, has had some health issues, but, man, that guy's a bully.
Yeah.
When people talk about a guy that they lost when they traded Wyatt Teller to the Browns, and now the guy is looking like an all-pro right guard for the Browns. If you're talking about a guy who looks a lot like Wyatt Teller, it's Landon Dickerson. Now, it also comes down to what your run scheme is. Luckily, they got to keep Brian Dable, a guy who I thought was going to get signed in free agency this year, ends up going ahead and sticking with him for one more year. I don't know how many options were on the table for him to actually take jobs. Part of it might be that they made it so far in the playoffs, he just didn't have the opportunity to really get a job for one of the teams looking for a head coach. Big miss on those other teams, by the way, that didn't take that, because I think he's going to be a great head coach one day. Wyatt Davis. Did I mention Wyatt Davis already?
I don't think so. Wyatt
Davis, Ohio State, really good guard prospect as well. If you're looking for a little bit deeper, Quinn Morentz out of Whitewater, he's going to be a big one on day 3, probably third-round guy that people are going to be looking at. I've heard rumors that he might go second round. That seems a little rich for a guy whose tape is not amazing. Did really well at the Senior Bowl. Teams got to meet with him. Did show up very well at the Senior Bowl. So I could see that. I could see them doubling up on guard. I could see them especially. But the good thing is they have their center, they have their right tackle in Darrell Williams, and they have Deion Dawkins. Those 3 spots are set. Now you just got to figure out your right guard, your left guard, and that offensive line's good. And they were solid as far as pass blockers go. Cody Ford, guy who they drafted a couple years ago in the second round, played pretty well for them. But I think he still hasn't really shown up as a run blocker. I don't see them going any further in free agency, though. They only have about $4.9 million. Maybe they get a little bit more out of a restructure, but they don't have a lot of money to just be thrown around. So, and you got to have money to sign your draft class as well.
Yeah.
So, I think Buffalo, we kind of said as much as you can about Buffalo. They really can't attack free agency. They kept the idea was kind of keeping guys, and I think they
did a pretty good job at that.
Yes, they did an amazing job of it. The 2 guys that they did get that did walk away, it's not that big of a deal. Corner is before we jump off. Corner's the other position. Somebody outside of Trey White on that defense to be on the other side of the field. That I think would be a position they could boost up. Levi Wallace has been okay there. They keep on rotating guys. Josh Norman, Levi Wallace. I think E.J. Gaines was there one year. They had Taron Johnson who had the pick 6 in the playoff game. He's been solid for them at slot, but I could see them again addressing corner in this draft.
Dolphins.
Talk about the Finns. Finns got some money, right? Top 51. They got $33 million. Kyle Van Noy, they just released. They traded for Isaiah Wilson from the Tennessee Titans. This is a big deal because they needed offensive line help.
Yeah.
They've not been good on the offensive lines. And even when they had Tunsil was the only really big thing there.
Now he's wasting away in Houston.
Yeah. Now that was a trade that ended up paying off dividends, I guess. Gives them the number 3 overall pick.
Yeah.
2 first-round picks in this
draft.
draft
After a 10-win season.
Yeah. And they have a high second-round pick because they have the top 2 picks of the Houstons in this draft class. So they also have a high second-rounder as well. So you have about 4 picks in the top 2 rounds. That's going to be a really good deal for them. They are going to be able to add a lot of young talent to this roster this year, especially if they trade down from 3, which is probably a very likely option.
Yes.
Unless they decide to draft a quarterback at number 3. We'll touch on that a little bit later because there's also been talks about another quarterback maybe that they try to trade for. We already mentioned a little bit about him.
Yes, we did.
Deshaun Watson, right? I think this is the team that if somebody was going to make a really blow-me-away offer, this is the team that could do it and not cripple their own team, right? Like that's the Jets could do it and not cripple their team because they have free agent money. The Miami Dolphins could do it because they still have plenty of draft capital, and both teams have plenty of draft capital. The only issue is that I think Miami, I think what Miami can offer is also Tua and maybe even defensive players, because like, hey, there's been talks about maybe they trade away Xavier Howard, right? A guy who they just extended a few years ago. Now he's starting to make a little bit of a fuss because he's not the highest paid corner on the team. Byron Jones is, but Xavier Howard had this all-pro year where he got like a ridiculous amount of interceptions. Probably should have been defensive player of the year candidate. So I think that makes sense that they are a highly likely team to trade for Tua because they could just blow the doors off of Houston if Houston made him available.
Yeah.
You get your number 1, you get your number 3 pick back, you can get your second rounder back. We could even give you our first rounder this year. And even if they gave him a first rounder next year and Xavier Howard and Tua, like that's still, they would still have the talent and the picks to be able to really attack the positions that they need to attack. So, they released Kyle Van Noy. Seemed like a surprise out of nowhere, but I think part of that was because Van Ginkel started playing really well this year. They liked him. Agba, free agent they signed last year, formerly of the Browns and the Chiefs. He played really well last year for them as a pass rusher. Shaq Lawson did not do amazing for them, but was solid. The trade for Isaiah Wilson, though, I think that might be like that might be some nice little arbitrage there. He had some in between the ears issues when he's been at the Titans, basically like tweeting out that he doesn't want to be a Titan anymore. Like that's kind of a rough situation. So much for your first round pick, Tennessee. Their draft did not end up playing for them at all last year. He had a couple of issues, couple off the field issues. And now he gets to go to Miami. He also might have been a little overdrafted. I kind of had him as a late second round kind of guy that I would have been eager on because he has the athleticism and like the power. But like athleticism wise, as far as he would be very good for a, like, again, if you're running like a gap power scheme, you're not really needing him to do a lot, just bulldoze guys over. Really good at that. I don't want him necessarily getting on the move too much because I don't think he can. He's a very much a lumbering kind of guy. Still, again, good trade option. Good move getting a guy who for a little bit of value. Don't know how involved he will be, but they need offensive line. I don't really see too many other cuts coming this offseason because keep in mind, we already said they have $33 million. That puts them well in the top 10 for free agent money. So they don't really have to do much already. They could spend that money and not do anything else to their roster. Couple of guys who are going to be free agents: Vince Beagle, Matt Breida, Ryan Fitzpatrick's the biggest name that's leaving.
Yeah.
That's a big deal that they're losing him because, to be honest, like when
he's
played,
probably the better quarterback.
Yeah, when they played, he was probably the better quarterback. I remember the Raiders game; they put him in at the last second to help beat the Raiders, and that was the reason why they won against the Raiders. It was the fact that they got him back in the game. They put him in the game and pulled Tua. He won that game at the last second. I don't see him sticking around. I think he goes to a team where he gets to be a full-time starter. They could release Bobby McCain and Eric Rowe and save some money. I don't think they do that because they played really well for them. And like we said before, good safeties, especially when they know your scheme and can get guys in the right places. I just don't see them trying to dump their safety situation right now, especially guys who are as versatile as McCain and Rowe. Team needs offensive line.
Yep.
Some speed at receiver, like Devontae Parker
is okay, but not your go-to.
He's not a like so. he has some speed to him. The problem is he's been better. The things that he's been good at in the NFL are not really the speed stuff, but more of the contested catch stuff, picking the ball away from guys, getting downfield and just beating out DBs for the ball. He's not the guy who's going to get more separation than NFL separation. He's not crazy separation, dude. He's solid at separation. He'll get a little bit of separation, but the real cool thing about him is that he's just got that body to bully people. And again, he has the athleticism to really cause some real problems, but he has not fit with what Tua does well. They still have Jakeem Grant. He's like the one speed guy left on the roster. Preston Williams, again, another big-bodied guy who's not really getting open. Really worked well when you had Ryan Fitzpatrick. Really doesn't necessarily work well when you have Tua, who is a quarterback who's adjusting to the NFL, getting used to the concept of NFL open. So those are really my primary concerns. In the draft, again, receiver they might look at, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle will be actually perfect for them. Familiarity with Tua Tagovailoa, speed guy who could totally break it loose. We mentioned a couple other receivers before, Jalen Darden, Elijah Moore, if you were going a little bit deeper into the draft. I think they take, unless they are looking to go for an offensive lineman up in the top 10, I think wide receiver is probably going to be what they attack in the top 10. Either one would be fine. There's Darisaw, there's Slater, there's, they have the chance to get Penny Sewell in the top 10. That would help bolster their offensive line, any of those guys. And that might be the thing that they value more. I didn't like a lot of their offensive line picks last year. Hunt played okay for them this year. Austin Jackson, the first rounder, did not play that great, but he was solid. Not even solid, he was just not great. But we'll see what ends up coming out of him. Maybe he develops. Maybe they kick him around maybe they switch him around where he is on the offensive line, give him a little bit of help. Other than that, defensively, they're always going to draft defensive guys. Again, this is very much a Patriots-style team with a little bit of flair. I think rushers, they're going to get an edge rusher, I think, in this draft class. They're going to attack wide receiver, offensive line, all those things. And by the way, there's going to be a lot of offensive linemen. If they're looking to solidify their offensive line right now, there's guys that are becoming available. Trey Turner got released. Kevin Zeitler got released. Gabe Jackson of the Raiders got released. So a lot of guys who are becoming free agents as we speak. Andrew Norwell over the Jacksonville Jaguars may get released or traded. There's just going to be a lot of available talent for guard going into this offseason that maybe if they want to boost their guard situation now, they offer them some solid, cheap deals, and maybe they'd be able to fix the offensive line right now. Any thoughts further on the Miami Dolphins?
I think you pretty much covered it, and I just want to put on record, I pray they do not get Deshaun Watson because we just got rid of Brady. Josh Allen is looking like he's going to be good. That's the last thing we need right now.
I'll say this, Deshaun Watson would fit that receiving core much better.
Oh, yeah.
Devontae Parker and Deshaun Watson would be an intriguing duo, especially given how Deshaun Watson worked with DeAndre Hopkins and with Mike Williams when he was at Clemson. That's the kind of guy who matches that style very well.
Yeah.
So this has been Draftvice. We've been talking about the AFC East. If you want, you can follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. You can follow me at BROJO. Death is in the end of life. Punch like a delicious drink you drink in the summer. And you can follow Harry.
At Harry Van Ness on OnlyFans.
And follow, subscribe, look at the other videos. This one probably ran quite a bit of time, but thank you.
We're on to something.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
About the past and about the future.